The abandonment. The sky was dark, filled with smoke and fire. The battlefield stretched across the ruined valley, where broken machines and fallen bodies covered the ground. Explosions echoed in the distance. The war had been going on for weeks, and no side was winning. It was chaos. Torin lay motionless in the dirt, half covered by dust and ash. His legs didn't move. He tried, again and again, to stand, but nothing responded. The last blast had thrown him into a rock wall. He had heard a crack in his spine. The pain had faded now, not because it was gone, but because his body had stopped feeling anything below his waist. He looked around with blurry eyes. His breathing was shallow. His weapon was gone. His armor was broken. And worst of all, his own team had left him behind. They were supposed to be an elite unit of the Krell Alliance, a mix of alien fighters trained to work with humans. Torin had trusted them. He had fought beside them in 3 major battles. But when the enemy attack grew too strong and the retreat order was given, his squad had looked at him, lying on the ground, and turned away. He still remembered the last words from his team leader, spoken coldly through the comms. "You're done." "We don't carry dead weight." Torin wasn't dead. Not yet, but he might as well have been. Hours passed. Drones flew overhead, scanning for survivors or targets. Torin stayed silent, trying not to move, though there wasn't much he could do. The ground grew colder. The pain in his back sharpened. He was starting to drift into unconsciousness when he heard footsteps, slow, careful. Then he saw the shape human armor. One of them, the human soldier, crouched behind a pile of rubble, scanning the area with his rifle. His helmet turned toward Torin. He raised the weapon slightly, then paused. Torin's heart beat faster. Was this the end? The human stepped forward, one hand still on his gun, the other raised in a calm gesture. "Easy," the human said. "You're alive?" Torin blinked. "Yes." The human lowered his rifle. "You're Krell?" "Yes," Torin said again. His voice was dry and rough. "I can't move." The soldier stepped closer, looking down at him. His armor was scratched, his face covered in dirt. He looked young, but his eyes were sharp, trained, experienced. "What happened?" the human asked. "Spine damage. I think it's permanent." The human knelt beside him, checking his pulse, then examining the damaged armor. "I'm Mason," he said. "Private First Class. You got a name?" "Torin," Mason nodded. "Your squad leave you?" "Yes." Mason was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and touched the side of his helmet. "Command, this is Mason. I found a living Krell unit. Paralyzed but breathing. Requesting medical evac." A pause. Then a voice replied through his comms. "Negative, Mason. Human extractions only. Krell unit is not priority. Leave him." Mason's jaw tightened. He looked down at Torren. Already knew what was coming. He had heard that humans were selfish, only caring about their own kind. Maybe that voice was proof. "You should go," Torin said. "They won't let you save me. I'm already left behind." Mason didn't move. He stood there thinking. The wind blew smoke past them. Enemy drones still hummed in the distance. Then slowly, Mason dropped his rifle to his side and knelt again. "I'm not leaving you." Torin stared at him. "Why?" "I've seen what happens to people who get left behind. I've been the one who left someone once. I won't do it again. You don't know me. I don't need to." Mason pulled out a small medical kit and began patching Torin's minor wounds. He worked quickly, with steady hands. His fingers were covered in dirt and dried blood, but he didn't stop. "You'll get in trouble," Torin said. "I'm already in trouble. I just made Command angry. You'll get killed." "Maybe, but I won't let someone die alone in the dirt. Not today." Torin didn't know what to say. His people were proud warriors. They believed in strength and survival. If you couldn't walk, you didn't fight. And if you didn't fight, you were forgotten. But this human was different. When Mason finished with the medical kit, he looked around. Then he grabbed parts of broken armor, loose cables, and a broken wing panel from a fallen drone. He started tying them together, building something. "What are you doing?" Torin asked. "Making a sled. If you can't walk, I'll drag you." "You'll never get far. We're miles from the nearest outpost." "Then we better start moving." Torin couldn't believe it. Mason wasn't joking. Minutes later, the sled was ready, rough and ugly, but strong enough. Mason carefully lifted Torin onto it, grunting with effort. Then he tied him down with straps and wires. The first pull was hard. Mason leaned forward, gripping the rope with both hands. The sled dragged slowly across the ground. "This is insane," Torin muttered. "Yeah," Mason said. "But leaving you would be worse." They moved into the smoke, toward the unknown. One human. One broken alien. No backup, no plan. Just one simple promise. "I won't leave you." And that, for the first time in Torin's life, gave him hope. The choice. The sun had disappeared behind thick black clouds. Ash drifted down like snow, coating the ground, the trees, the wreckage. The world looked dead, silent, like it had stopped breathing. Mason's boots dragged across the ground as he pulled the makeshift sled behind him. His body ached, his arms and legs burned. But he didn't stop. Torin lay flat on the sled, tied down with belts and wires. He stared at the sky, quiet. His body was still numb from the waist down, but the rest of him felt very alive. Each bump, each shake, reminded him that he was still here. "How far are we going?" Torin asked. "There's an old supply post about 8 clicks south." Mason replied, short of breath. "Might still be standing." "And if it's not, then we keep moving." Torin looked up at the human. Sweat dripped down Mason's face. His armor was heavy, and he carried extra gear now. Food, water, first aid, and whatever scraps they found on the battlefield. Most of it was for Torin. "You could have left me," Torin said. "Yeah," Mason replied, not looking back. "I could have." Torin didn't speak after that. He didn't know what to say. He had been raised to believe that humans were selfish, only loyal to their own. He had heard stories of humans abandoning allies, breaking agreements. But this one, Mason, was different. They reached a burned-out bunker by evening. It was quiet, no signs of movement. Mason scouted ahead, weapon ready. After a few minutes, he gave the all-clear and pulled Torin inside. It was dark, but safe. No drones, no enemy soldiers. Just broken walls and old crates. Mason lit a small lamp and sat down, breathing hard. He opened a pack of dried food and passed some to Torin. "Here, eat something." Torin looked at the food, then at Mason. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked. "What do you get out of it?" Mason leaned back against the wall, chewing slowly. "I once had a friend," he said. "His name was Paul. We were pinned down just like this. He got hit in the leg. I could have stayed, helped him, but command ordered a retreat. I followed. Orders left him there." He stopped for a moment. His voice had become softer. They found his body 2 days later. He bled out alone. Torin listened, silent. "I told myself I didn't have a choice," Mason said. "But the truth is, I just didn't fight hard enough, didn't argue, didn't stay." Now Torin understood. This wasn't just about him. This was about something Mason had carried for a long time. Guilt, regret, maybe both. "I'm not Paul," Torin said quietly. "No," Mason said, "but I'm not making the same mistake twice." They sat in silence for a while, only the soft hum of the lamp between them. Outside, the wind howled. The sky lit up with flashes from distant battles. After a while, Torin broke the silence. "My people don't value weakness. If I can't fight, I'm not useful. That's how I was trained." "Maybe they're wrong," Mason said. Torin looked at him. "Maybe humans are more stubborn than I thought." Mason smiled a little. You're not wrong. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from Mason's comm device. He tapped it. Mason, this is command. We're tracking your signal. You're off course. Report status. Mason took a deep breath. This is Mason. I have a wounded Crow with me. Still alive. I'm requesting evac again. A long pause. Negative. That's a non-human unit. You've already been told. Abandon and return. That's an order. Mason's hands clenched. He looked over at Torin. No, he said. Repeat that, soldier. I said no. I'm not leaving him. There was another long pause. Then the voice returned, colder now. You've disobeyed a direct order. You will be marked. As a WOL, do you understand? I understand. Return alone, or be cut off. Final warning. Mason shut the comm down. The silence returned. Torin watched him. That was a big risk. I don't care. You'll lose your rank, maybe even be jailed, or worse. Mason looked straight at him. Then I'll be a prisoner with a clean conscience. Torin let out a breath. For the first time in his life, he felt something strange, respect for a human. Not just for his strength or skills, but for his heart. You're not what I expected, Torin said. Most people aren't, Mason replied. That night, Torin stayed awake while Mason slept lightly beside the entrance. Weapon across his lap, Torin thought about everything, his training, his people, his squad that left him. And now this human who had no reason to help him, yet chose to stay. It didn't make sense. But maybe that was the point. The long crawl by. Morning, the wind had died down. Smoke still covered the sky, but the fires in the distance had faded. The world felt cold and quiet, like the war had paused, but only for a moment. Mason woke early. He stretched his arms, checked his weapon, and looked over at Torin. How are you feeling? He asked. My legs are still dead, Torin replied, but I'm awake. Mason gave a tired smile. That's something. He helped Torin eat, then packed up their supplies. He checked the path outside the bunker, then returned. We have to keep moving, he said. This area won't stay safe for long. 8 clicks, right? Torin asked. Maybe less now, if we're lucky. Torin nodded. Then let's go. Mason pulled the sled outside and began dragging it again. The terrain was harder now, rocky, uneven, and full of debris. The sled scraped over broken metal and blackened soil. Mason's boots slipped more than once, but he pushed forward. Torin lay silently, watching the ruined world pass by. He had seen many battlefields, but never like this, never from this point of view. Weak, helpless, depending on someone else. It was not a feeling he liked. Does your kind always help the weak? He asked after a while. Not always, Mason replied, but I do. Why? Mason didn't answer right away. He kept walking, pulling, breathing hard. Because someone has to, he finally said. They crossed a small ridge and stopped to rest under the remains of a crashed dropship. Mason took a drink of water and offered some to Torin. Torin drank slowly, then looked at him. You know, we were taught that humans are emotional, unpredictable, dangerous. Mason raised an eyebrow. Sounds about right. We thought. It made you weak, Mason chuckled. Some of us are. But not all. Torin looked at the dirt. We were also taught that mercy is a flaw. Then maybe your people don't understand strength. Torin blinked. What do you mean? Mason sat down beside him, wiping sweat from his face. It's easy to kill, easy to follow orders. But it takes strength to stop and help someone when the world tells you to walk away. Torin didn't respond. But the words stayed with him. They moved again, slower now. Mason's muscles were tired. His back hurt. Every step felt heavier. That night, they found an old maintenance station, abandoned, but still standing. Mason checked inside first, then brought Torin in. It was dusty, full of broken machines and cracked screens, but it was shelter. Mason used some tools to seal the door and turned on a battery-powered lamp. The soft glow filled the room. Torrin looked around. What is this place? Used to be a drone repair station, Mason said. Long before this war started. Torrin nodded. Strange how everything ends up broken. Not everything. Mason sat down and pulled off his helmet. His face was pale and tired, eyes sunken from exhaustion. He looked 10 years older than he had the day before. Torrin stared at him. Why do you care so much? I don't know, Mason said honestly. Maybe because I'm tired of watching people give up on each other. He leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes for a moment. Torrin looked down at his own body, useless legs, bandaged wounds, cracked armor. I was a squad leader, he said quietly. I trained for years, fought in 7 campaigns. I earned my rank. But none of that mattered when I fell. Mason opened one eye. Your team didn't deserve you. Torrin laughed bitterly. They said they'd return. I knew they were lying. Mason looked at him. Then let's prove them wrong. Let's survive. Suddenly, a soft beep came from one of the broken consoles in the corner. Mason jumped to his feet, rifle in hand. He moved quickly to the console, checking the small blinking light. It's a drone ping, he muttered. Scouting unit, probably enemy. Torrin tried to sit up. How close? Maybe a few 100 meters, could be random. Could be tracking us. What do we do? Mason turned off the lamp. The room went dark. He moved to the window, scanning the outside with a small scope. If it gets close, I'll take it out. You can't risk exposure. I don't have a choice. A few minutes passed in silence. Then, the faint hum of a drone echoed through the air. It passed overhead. Slow and steady. Mason crouched low, finger on the trigger, heart pounding. The drone hovered near the building, then moved on, fading into the distance. Mason waited 5 more minutes before standing. We're clear, for now. Torrin let out a breath. That was too close. Yeah, Mason agreed. They're sweeping the area, probably looking for survivors. They'll find us eventually. Not if we move fast. Mason checked the gear again, then looked at Torrin. You holding up? I can't feel my legs, Torrin said. But I can still shoot, Mason smiled. Good, I might need your help. Torrin looked at him seriously. You risked your life for me. If it comes to a fight, I won't let you do it alone. That night, they took turns resting. Mason dozed beside the door, rifle in his hands. Torrin stayed awake, watching the broken ceiling, listening to the sounds of the world outside, the distant echoes of machines, the wind over metal, the quiet breathing of the human who refused to leave him. Something had changed in him. He didn't feel like dead weight anymore. He felt like a part of something, even if it was just the two of them. Footsteps in the dark. The next morning came with no sunlight, just a gray sky and the same heavy silence. The air was cold. The war still rumbled far in the distance, but this part of the world felt forgotten. Mason tightened the straps around Torrin's sled, checked their supplies, and scanned the area again. Still no rescue signals? Torrin asked. Nothing. Command isn't coming, Mason replied. He didn't sound angry anymore, just tired. Tired, but focused. They left the old station and moved toward the next ridge. Mason pulled with all his strength. Torrin's sled scraped against the rocks, leaving a trail behind them. If the enemy was tracking, it wouldn't be hard to follow. Still, they had no choice. They had to keep moving. Hours passed. Mason barely spoke. Torrin could see his body slowing, his steps heavier, his breathing faster. Sweat dripped from his forehead, but he kept going. You need to rest, Torrin said. No time. You'll collapse. I'll rest when we reach cover. Torrin frowned. He hated feeling helpless. He hated watching someone else struggle for his sake. He had always been the one leading, the one fighting. But now he was just wait. Suddenly, Mason stopped, his head tilted. He raised his rifle. What is it? Torin asked. Mason held a finger to his lips. Footsteps, faint but real, not one pair, several. Moving fast, maybe 5 or 6 people. Mason crouched low behind a large rock, dragging the sled beside him. He peeked over. Torin's eyes sharpened. Who are they? Not ours, Mason whispered. Figures came into view, armed soldiers, armor dark red, weapons ready. They moved like they were hunting. Not searching for help, searching for something to kill. Enemy scouts. Mason's hand tightened on his rifle. He watched them pass, holding his breath. But then, one of the scouts stopped. He looked down at the ground. Then followed the drag marks. Mason cursed under his breath. They're tracking us. We have to move, Torin said. No, Mason replied. We won't outrun them, not like this. He pulled Torin behind a broken metal wall and crouched beside him. We hold here, quiet, if they don't see. They'll move on. But the footsteps got louder. Closer. Then, silence. Torin's heart pounded in his chest. He could hear his own breathing. He glanced at Mason, who was still as stone, rifle aimed. Then a voice shouted, "Found them!" Gunfire exploded. Mason fired back, quick and clean. One shot, then another. 2 enemy soldiers dropped. But there were more, too many. Torin reached for a small sidearm Mason had given him earlier. His hands were shaky, but his aim was still sharp. He fired once, hitting an enemy in the shoulder. "They're flanking!" Mason shouted. Grenades exploded nearby. The blast shook the ground. Dust and smoke filled the air. Mason grabbed Torin's sled and pulled hard, dragging him into a narrow trench. "We're trapped," Torin said. "Not yet." Mason reached into his pack and pulled out a small beacon. He slammed it on the ground. Red light blinked fast. "What is that?" Torin asked. "Emergency signal, short range. Someone might pick it up." "You said command cut you off." "They did, but this sends on all channels. Maybe someone, anyone, is listening." The enemy surrounded the area. Mason reloaded and kept firing, but he was running low on ammo. Torin did what he could with the pistol, but he couldn't move much. Suddenly, the sky above lit up with blue light. A ship, a small transport, no markings, no official colors. Just fast and quiet. It dropped smoke bombs over the enemy positions. Then, ropes fell from the sky, and 2 armored figures rappelled down. Mason stared in shock. "I didn't think anyone would come. Who are they?" Torin asked. "No idea." The newcomers fired with precision, driving the enemy back. One of them reached Mason. "You sent the beacon?" The figure asked through a voice modulator. "Yes. We've got a wounded Krell. Paralyzed. Needs evac." "No time for questions. Get him on board." Mason lifted Torin with help from the stranger. They ran to the rope. The sled was pulled up first. Mason followed, climbing fast despite his exhaustion. As the ship lifted off, enemy gunfire hit its side, but it held strong. The ramp closed, sealing them inside. Safe. For now. Mason dropped to the floor, breathing hard. Torin looked up at him. "You did it. We did it." The armored figures removed their helmets. One was a woman, human. The other, surprisingly, was a Krell soldier. "We don't follow command orders," the woman said. "We track emergency beacons and pick up whoever we can." Mason looked at her. "Thank you." Torin nodded slowly. "You saved us both." The Krell soldier stepped forward and looked at Torin. "You were left behind?" "Yes. You're not the only one. There are others. The war has made everyone forget what it means to fight together." Mason and Torin exchanged a glance. The woman continued, "We're going to a neutral outpost. Safe zone. No orders, no politics, just survivors." Mason sat beside Torin, finally letting his body relax. "You're safe now," he said. Torin looked at him, and for the first time, There was no bitterness in his voice. Just peace. You kept your word. And I always will. The ship flew off into the dark sky, leaving the battlefield behind. A soldier's worth, the ship flew steady through the dark sky. Outside, the war still raged. But inside the small transport, there was quiet. Not peace, just a temporary pause. Torrin lay on a padded stretcher. His armor had been removed, and bandages wrapped his midsection and legs. A small medical bot checked his vitals every few minutes. Mason sat beside him, one hand resting on his rifle, the other holding a water pouch. Vitals stable, the bot beeped. Paralysis remains, internal damage healing, full recovery, unknown. Torrin didn't flinch. He had heard the same thing since the injury. How far to the outpost? Mason asked the woman pilot. 2 hours, maybe less if we don't get spotted. Enemy patrols still active? Everywhere, she said. But we know how to stay invisible. Mason nodded and turned back to Torrin. You hanging in? I've had worse, Torrin said, though his voice was low. You're lying. Of course, I don't want to look weak, Mason chuckled. You've earned the right to rest. Torrin looked at the ceiling. I don't know what I am anymore. I was a warrior, a leader. Now I can't even stand. You're still all of those things, Mason said, just not right now. Torrin stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, do you think your people will accept me? Mason thought carefully before answering. Some will. Some won't. But in this war, people are starting to care less about species and more about who they can trust. Torrin nodded. Slowly. Then maybe there's still a place for me. The ship shook slightly. The pilot cursed under her breath. We've got a problem, she said. Mason stood up. What kind? Drone net. They started using automated trap sky mines, defense satellites. One of them just tagged us with a low-level scan. Can we shake it? I'm trying, but wait. The ship jolted hard. Lights flickered. A loud hum vibrated through the metal floor. We're hit. Torrin gritted his teeth. Not again. Mason moved to the cockpit. Where did it hit? Right engine. We're losing altitude. Can we land? Crash is more likely. The Krell soldier beside the pilot stepped forward. There's a canyon system below. We might survive if we slide down into it. Do it, Mason said. Anything's better than being a target in the sky. The pilot angled the ship downward. The metal groaned under the stress. Alarms blared. Torrin grabbed the stretcher rails tightly. Mason returned to his side, crouching low. Hold on. The ship slammed into the side of a cliff, skidded across sharp rocks, then dropped into a narrow canyon. Sparks flew. Panels broke loose. Mason shielded Torrin's head with his arm as the world turned sideways. Then, silence. The lights flickered. Then shut off completely. Mason blinked through the smoke and dust. The ship was tilted halfway on its side, but intact. Everyone alive? He called out. One by one, the voices answered. Yes. I'm good. Minor injury, nothing serious. Systems offline, the pilot said. No power. We're grounded. Mason helped Torrin sit upright. You okay? Still breathing, Mason smiled. That's enough for now. The Krell soldier opened the hatch slowly. Outside, the canyon was deep and narrow, with tall rock walls on either side. It was quiet. We're hidden for now, the Krell said. But not for long. The group gathered outside the ship. Mason scanned the sky. If that drone tagged us, the enemy will send scouts. The pilot checked a small scanner. There's an old mining station nearby abandoned. About 3 clicks north. Shelter? Possibly. Supplies too. We can't stay here. Mason looked at Torrin. We'll need to move again. Torrin nodded. Let's do it. The Krell soldier offered help lifting the stretcher. Together, they carried Torrin across the rocky path, moving fast but careful. The canyon gave them cover, but not safety. The deeper they went, the darker it got. They reached the mining station just before sunset. Rusted walls, broken windows, and long dead power lines. But it was strong enough to hold Dot inside. They found a control room. Mason cleared broken chairs and set Torrin down gently. "This place is old," the pilot said. "But we can make it. Work for a while." The others began searching for food, tools, and anything useful. Mason stayed beside Torrin, checking his bandages. "You know," Torrin said, "we've been through a lot in just a few days." Mason smiled. "More than most soldiers do in a year. Do you regret it?" Mason shook his head. "Not for a second." Torrin looked at the dusty wall. "I used to think strength meant being alone, standing tall, fighting without help. You were wrong." "I know. Now I see it's the people who stay behind, the ones who won't leave you, that are the real strength." Before Mason could answer, the pilot rushed in. "Scouts coming, 2 drones, fast." Everyone went into position. Mason handed Torrin a rifle. "You still remember how to shoot?" "Better than you." The group set up traps using what little gear they had. When the drones came, it was quick and violent. The machines fired down the canyon, scanning for heat. One was caught in a trap, torn apart by a shock grenade. The other spotted them and returned fire. Mason stood in front, protecting the others. The drone hit him in the shoulder, but he kept firing. Torrin aimed carefully and shot once. The drone exploded in a burst of sparks. It was over in seconds. Silence returned. The pilot helped Mason sit. "You're hit." "I've had worse," he said, grinning through the pain. Torrin looked at the wreckage of the drones. "They'll know we're here now. We'll move again," Mason said. "We always do." Torrin nodded. "Next time I'll carry you," Mason laughed. "I'll hold you to that." The last stand and the new beginning. The mining station was dark and silent again. Mason's shoulder was wrapped in a cloth soaked with antiseptic. The others had patched him up the best they could. He still couldn't move it well, but he kept his rifle close. He had to. Torrin lay nearby, his body still weak, but his hands now rested firmly on a rifle. His eyes stayed sharp. His voice was strong again. "We can't stay here," the pilot said. "After those drones, they'll send more." Mason nodded. "We'll be overrun soon." The Krell soldier, who had fought alongside them for the past day, looked at both of them. "We don't run anymore. We fight. Together." "But how long can we hold this place?" the pilot asked. "We don't even have working comms." Mason leaned back and thought for a second. "Maybe we don't have to hold it. Just long enough." "Long enough for what?" "To send one last message." The pilot raised an eyebrow. "You think someone will answer?" "They might," Mason said. "And if they don't, then at least we'll make them remember who we are." Torrin looked at the broken console near him. The mining station must have had its own short-range tower. Maybe it still works. "Let's find out," Mason said. The team moved fast. Dust filled the air as they searched old rooms, ripped open panels, and followed dead wires. Finally, they found a small backup comm station deep underground. It barely had power, but it was still alive. "This will do," Mason said. He typed fast on the cracked screen. "What are you sending?" Torrin asked. "A broadcast. Not to command. Not to any army, just to anyone listening." He paused, then started recording. "This is Mason, human soldier. We're at an old mining station in Sector 9C. We're injured, outnumbered, but not broken. We rescued a Krell warrior left behind in battle. The same Krell our command told us to abandon. But I didn't. I couldn't. And I want everyone to know. He didn't give up either. This war has taken too much. It's made us forget who we are. But right now, there are still people and aliens who care, who fight for the right reasons. If anyone hears this, know that we're still alive. And we're still fighting. Together." He hit send. The signal shot into the sky, weak but clear. Then came the waiting. Hours passed. The canyon was still. Everyone took turns resting, eating small rations, and sharpening old weapons. The mining station had a few defense turrets, long inactive. The pilot and Krell worked together to get 2 of them back online. Just before dawn, the scanner beeped. Mason rushed to the control room. "What is it?" Torin asked. "Ships," Mason said. 2. "No, 3. Fast, coming our way. Friendly? I don't know." Everyone went into position. The stations. Turrets pointed upward. The Krell took the right flank. The pilot manned the defense console. Mason stood beside Torin, ready. The ships got closer. Then one of them sent a code. The pilot's eyes widened. "It's a response. Someone heard your message." The ships dropped low and hovered above the canyon. A large door opened. Figures jumped down, armed, armored. And not all human. Some were Krell. Some were from other alien races. A small resistance group. People like Mason. Fighters who didn't care about orders, only about doing what was right. One of them stepped forward. "We got your message. Took a while to trace, but we found you." Mason stepped forward. "You came for us?" "We came for all of us," the soldier replied. "We're building something new, away from command, away from politics, a unit built on trust, mixed squads. Humans, Krell, anyone who wants to fight the right way." Torin stared in surprise. "That actually exists?" "It does now," the soldier said. "And we want you both with us." Mason looked at Torren. Torren smiled. "I told you, next time I'd carry you." Mason laughed. "Let's hope I never need that." They helped load everyone onto the ships. The wounded were cared for. Supplies were given freely. As they lifted into the sky, Mason looked down at the small mining station. It wasn't much. But it had been the place where everything changed. The place where a human and a paralyzed alien found purpose again. Later, at the resistance base, far from the front lines, Torin was placed in advanced medical care. Machines helped his body slowly recover. The doctors said there was hope. Maybe even full movement in the future. But even in a wheelchair, he trained new recruits. He spoke to both humans and aliens, teaching them how to fight, how to lead, and how to never leave anyone behind. Mason became a squad leader. He worked with mixed units, leading missions where trust mattered more than rank. Together, they became symbols, not just of survival, but of unity. And though the war still raged in many places, something new had begun, a future built by those who chose honor over orders. And in that future, the bond between a human soldier and a wounded alien warrior would never be forgotten. The end.